Here, I'll put this on so that you're not going to hear this, but this will allow the people online to hear. All right, everybody have a Chumash? All right, sorry that kind of this setting makes it more frontal, but this gives a chance for folks at home to be able to watch who can't make it here. So we will begin with our blessing for study. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kisham mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, ruler of the universe, who commands us to busy ourselves with words of Torah. So with that, we are in Parshat Shemot, very first portion of the book of Exodus, or as it's known in Hebrew, Sefer Shemot, the book of Shemot. And as a reminder to folks, when we study Rashi, we have to ask a question always of what's bothering Rashi. And everything bothers this guy. But what is bothering him today? And so let's take a look. I talked a little bit about this last night if you were at services. I don't know that any of you were here last night, so that might be actually a good thing, even though it's good to come on Friday night, because this is what I talked about in my Devar Torah last night. I referenced it some today. Let's start off. We are on page 317, Exodus chapter 1, verse 1. Who would like to, can we get somebody to read for us? All right. If no volunteers, I'll read. All right. These are the names of the sons of Israel who came to Egypt with Jacob, each coming with his household. Reuben, Shimon, I'll just say the Hebrew, Levi, and Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin, Dan, and Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. The total number of persons that were of Jacob's issue came to 70. Joseph being already in Egypt, Joseph died, and all his brothers, and all that generation. But the Israelites were fertile and prolific, and they multiplied and increased very greatly, so that the land was filled with them. So what here is bothering Rashi? Why is Rashi annoyed already in the book of Exodus? Or not annoyed, but bothered. So, is this the first time that we're being introduced to Jacob's sons? No, we've actually had a ton of stuff about them all throughout Genesis. And we just finished Genesis. And so now we have here the beginning of Exodus. And how does Exodus begin? Well, here are the names of Jacob's sons. And it's like, well, wait a second. We just ended Genesis by talking in great detail about each and every one of these guys. Why? That would be like if I were to say here, oh, we have Josh. Josh is very into genealogy. This is Juliana. She has this amazing niece named Havana. We have David back here. David was born in Egypt and has this great story to him. And we have Adina back there. Adina, and I can go through all you guys. I won't give your whole life stories for all of you, but we have Adina here and this about Adina. And Janine, let me tell you all about Janine. And Rio is right here. Let me tell you about Rio. And of course we have David and Julia. Let me tell you about them as well. All right, moving on. Well, there were 10 people who came here today, and they included Josh, Juliana, David, Adina, Julia, David, Janine, and Rio. You'd be like, you just said that. Why are you telling us everybody's names again? You just told us their names. This bothers Rashi. Why do we need this again? So what are some of your thoughts?
Why it's repeated or why it bothers Rashi?
Well, this is why it bothers Rashi. He's like, why do we need this? But why do you think that we start off by once again saying everybody's name?
But if someone repeat the name, this means he's important and he will be an owner of the story.
Good. So what David just said is that if somebody's name is repeated, that means that they're important. And that's something that Rashi is saying as well, is Rashi says, here, let me find the exact thing he says about this. Rashi says, although God counted them in their lifetime, because these guys are all dead by now, in their lifetime by their names, God counted them again after their death to let us know how precious they were to God, because they were likened to the stars, which God takes out and brings in by number and by their names. As it states in Isaiah, he who sends out their host by count, who calls them each by names. So what Rashi is doing, it says, Rashi's explanation is that God is repeating this because each of these people are important to God, and God holds them in great affection. So just think about that for a second. Have you ever had a time where somebody said your name and it really made you feel seen? Perhaps. Anybody want to share a time that happened? Rio? Go ahead.
Literally the best thing that happened to me on Christmas, because I didn't come here with wonderful food, unfortunately, was my mother-in-law using my chosen name rather than my historical name on presents.
So your
To mitigate marital tension, she refers to me as not my dead name, fine with my mask name, but she does this little thing every year, like, yeah, no, I care about you. So yeah, I felt profoundly seen. Common experience among gender diverse people.
great example, Rio. So your birth name was not, the name you were given at birth was not Rio.
Indeed.
And Rio was a name that you chose later in life. And so when people, and how you like to be called, by the way, how you ask somebody their name in Hebrew, the most common way is Ekorim Lecha, which means how should I call you? Like, how are you called? Or if you speak Spanish, we have some Spanish speakers here. Julia, that is your native language. How would you say my name is Julia in Spanish? Julia, excuse me. But how would you say my name is Julia?
Mi nombre es Julia.
Okay, so you could say mi nombre es Julia, but somebody else might say me llamo Julia, which means I call myself Julia, or something like this. And so we often, it's not just like this is my name, but this is how I'm called. And so we see that. And so with the example that Rio gave, Rio is saying that that by using your chosen name in the way that you prefer to be called, it made you feel seen and valued in a way that if somebody called you not the way that you prefer to be called, doesn't make you feel seen and valued. That's a great example. Any other examples? Yeah, Josh.
So during Thanksgiving, I was at my girlfriend's family's celebration. And they were calling the people who had either had physical ailments or passed away. And even though I'm not related to the family, I didn't even know that they knew my father had passed away.
Mm.
They recognized me among a sea of maybe 50 people when I was the only one who really experienced that, and that felt good. Just, I mean, kind of similar to the way that we either do a Misha Barach or we talk about those of the past. I mean, it's something I wouldn't have expected, so when it happened, it meant something to me.
And so you felt seen at you say your girlfriend's families or
Their extended family.
their extended family.
You know, people who
It's
are
great.
they're cousins and aunts and uncles of hers.
Mm-hmm.
And besides knowing my name, they don't know me very well. So when they brought up me and my father, it had special meaning to me.
That's so nice. And Josh mentioned the Misha Barach, by the way. Another great example. Another great example, the Misha Barach, because I don't know. I mean, there have been some people out there who think that somebody's name on here will mean life or death. Like, oh my gosh, if we don't have somebody's name on here, then maybe they're not going to get better. But for our prayers for healing. Well, that's not exactly how the Mishaberach works, because I've also had people who we've put on the Mishaberach list and then they've died, and their family members have come to me all upset and said, I don't understand why they died. Their name was on the Mishaberach list. I'm like, well, we can't keep somebody alive forever. Otherwise, there'd be people who are 1,000 years old who, because their name was kept on the Mishaberach list. That's not how it works. But what the Mishaberach list does, it actually does have some power. There's a Jewish teaching that if 60 people are praying for a person, they're supposed to improve their health. I don't know how scientific that is, but something that is scientific and has been proven is that if people know that there's people out there praying for them, or a community that's hoping that they get better, it actually gives them will to live and can improve their situation, their health situation. And so, again, while putting somebody's name on the Mishaberach list isn't a magic cure, having somebody hear their name on the Mishaberach list can actually contribute to them getting better because they feel seen and valued and loved. So that's another great example. An example I gave last night was of how when I was a rabbinical student, I met these two rabbis just in passing who were really famous rabbis. And there's no way that they would remember me because they were really big, famous rabbis that like every rabbi in the country knows. And here I was, just a rabbinical student, and being like, hi, my name's Sam. I follow your career. You're amazing. Oh my gosh. And they're like, thanks, Sam. Nice to meet you. Well, both of these rabbis, each of them saw me a few years later when I was an ordained rabbi. And one, I was in a room of like 200 people, and Rabbi Jonah Pesner was one of them, and he was taking questions from folks, and he sees me in the back, and he goes, Sam, right? It's great to see you. I was like, he remembered me? Why would he remember me? But like, here this really important rabbi remembered me. It made me feel so good that he knew my name. I was like, this rabbi knows my name. That's amazing. And same with the other guy. There was a third rabbi who is easily one of the most famous, if not the most famous rabbi in the country, who I have met several times and spent a good deal of time with. And somebody, I was with somebody, and this rabbi came up, and the person I was with was like, oh, do you know Rabbi Sam Spector? And this rabbi said, oh, hi, I don't think we've met. And I was like thinking, are you kidding me right now? You haven't, like, and that kind of hurt my feelings that I was like, you don't remember me? We've actually spent significant time together. And so it can really, when somebody remembers your name or calls you by your name, it shows that you're important to them and that you matter. It can be a really good feeling or a really bad feeling if they don't remember you. Yeah, Janine.
Before, but something I appreciate that you brought to call on me is when calling people up to the Torah, you do it by name.
Oh, thank you.
Before you, and I came here in 1990, it was always just number one, number two, number three.
Oh.
The first rabbi
Am I really?
called me who actually, not only do you call people by their Hebrew name, but you also introduce everybody by their English name.
Oh, thank you.
Spanish name, or so that the congregation, so that.
Well, thank you for that compliment.
Requested that before in our
Oh,
first person.
I didn't realize I was a pioneer in that regard, but thank you.
Other synagogues,
Sure, but here.
it's something you brought.
Well, thank you. That's a nice compliment. I appreciate it. So for the people online who didn't hear, one of the things I guess that I brought to Kolami was when we call somebody up for an aliyah, calling them up by their Hebrew name, but also their English name. And by the way, I'll give you a secret. Repeating people's names as much as I can helps me remember their name. So like if I meet somebody for the first time and say, Rio, it's nice to meet you. So Rio, tell me where you're from. And Rio, did you, what do you do for work? and stuff. And David, have you met Rio? I will try and repeat Rio's name as many times as possible to try and get it in my head. Now I can't. Sometimes I forget. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. Remind me, and that happens because I'm human. But using our people's names for honors and stuff is good. Or other people in the community go, oh, that's Janine. That's who that is. Okay, I was curious about her name. And also I like to try and mention all of our board members and stuff, because not only do these people volunteer and work hard, but perhaps for them, hearing their name can make them feel appreciated. David, you had something to say.
Yes. So, when you call someone by name or you remember someone by name,
Mm-hmm.
means it's important. And be really good about it. Yesterday I was in the medical center and the guy called me by my legal name.
Mm.
I didn't answer him.
Mm.
And for a few seconds I felt that I failed my name, which is I choose David as my name, and I felt it is destroyed.
Mm.
Just like that, because he called me by my legal name, and no one did that here.
Mm.
And from where you get that, I don't know. So I didn't answer him for a few seconds, then I answered him and I told him, David.
Mm.
And then I felt that I am back.
That's,
So it is not just a name. It is what does the name represent to you.
yeah, no, that's an important point. And I made a little faux pas yesterday. I had lunch with a priest in town, and his name is Christopher. And I saw Frank Humor and said, "Oh, have you met Father Chris?" and stuff. And I appreciate it, even though I was a little embarrassed. He said, "Oh," he told me afterwards politely, "By the way, I usually go by Christopher," as kind of a polite way of being like, "Oh, I'm sorry." But it's important to call people what they want to be called. And I wish I had more confidence to correct people if they get my name wrong. I went on Birthright when I was in college, and this guy thought my name was Seth. And for like 3 days, he called me Seth. And I didn't want to correct him because I didn't want to embarrass him. And then, I just started responding to it. So I think this guy still thinks my name is Seth, because for like 2 days, he'd be like, "Seth." I'm like, "Yeah, what's up?" But yeah, I was like, maybe I would cause him more embarrassment now that if somebody said, "Why do you keep calling Sam Seth?" Maybe I should have corrected him early. Yeah, Dina.
When I converted and took my new name, it means everything to me.
Mm.
So I went to court and I saw the judge, and they were all happy because I'm not changing my name because I want to run away from somebody or hide.
Mm.
I changed my name because I'm grateful. And when I got that new name, my whole life started over. It took a long time for me to get to this place. I think because of my anxiety, it was just me. And I've grown a lot. I feel like I'm just so grateful.
I love that. So Adina,
To sit in the chair and listen to everybody. It's wonderful, and I really appreciate my name. And I write my full name out every time.
I love your name, by the way. It's a great name. But so Adina shared that she legally changed her name to Adina after converting, because in that her whole life changed with this. And that can sometimes, when we are called something that is more a reflection of who we are, that can actually make a big difference. That can make a really big difference for folks. And we see in the Torah and throughout Judaism that names change. So, for instance, Avram becomes Avraham, Sarai becomes Sarah, Yaakov becomes Yisrael, Yoshua becomes Yehoshua. But these are not just like, okay, I'm going by, my name's Sam, I'm going to start going by Sammy or something like that. It's more of they're saying, I am at a crossroads now, and I need a name that reflects where I am in this story now. For me, I actually had a name change. My Hebrew name was Shmuel Eliezer ben Gedaliah. My Hebrew name is now Harav Shmuel Eliezer. That's actually when you become a rabbi, it changes your name to add the title, the rabbi, as part of your Hebrew name. And but it's to also symbolize you've taken on a new status in your community. Something I also like to remind folks, it's important to call people what they want to be called. Right now in our country, there's a lot of debate going on around pronouns, gender identity, what to call somebody. If I've always known this person as Bruce Jenner, do I call them Caitlyn Jenner and stuff like that? And I know there's a lot of debate around that. But something I tell people is while you can discuss that stuff, it's really important to call people the way they want to be called. It's one, respectful, but two, studies have shown that if you call a person by the pronouns that they like to go by or by their chosen name, they are 50% less likely to attempt suicide. That's actually a statistic. And so as Jews, the most important thing to us is pikuach nefesh, saving a life. So I tell people that's my interpretation, that calling somebody, even if you don't see them that way, calling them by the way they prefer to be addressed should be a mitzvah, a commandment in Judaism, because it could actually save a life. Let's go to chapter 2, because we're going to this actually kind of relates to this next thing that's bothering Rashi. By the way, because the thing we learn in Judaism too, that the most valuable thing you can own. We learn about different crowns, the crowns of the Torah. People say the crown of that a king wears, but that the most important crown we learn is the crown of a good name. And Judaism teaches that the most important thing that you own is your name. And that's so true. Like, there are certain people out there who are just phenomenal people who were Jewish. There were amazing people out there who are Jewish who, when we hear their name, we take a lot of pride in that as a people. But then there are also other folks who are Jewish, like Jeffrey Epstein, not a name that any of us should be proud of or anything. And his name has now been tarnished and ruined. Same like Bernie Madoff and people like that. Like, you can destroy your name through your actions. And so names are incredibly important and what's associated with that. So the next one I was going to bring up, is it chapter 2 or... you know what? I'll skip over this one and come back to it because I want to go one that more closely relates to that idea I just taught. Yeah, so let's go to chapter 2, verse 16. Okay, verse 16, top of page 325. Yeah, please, Rio, go for it.
16 to where should I stop?
You can just read, how about you just read that first verse? Or how about you read through, you can read to the bottom of the page. Read to the bottom of the page.
Now, the priest of Midian had 7 daughters. They came to draw water and filled the troughs to water their father's flock. But shepherds came and drove them off. Moses rose at their defense, and he watered their flock. When they returned to their father Reuel, he said, "How is it that you have come back so soon today?" They answered, "An Egyptian rescued us from the shepherds. He even drew water for us and watered the flock." He said to his daughters, "Where is he then? Why did you leave the man? Ask him in to break bread." Moses consented to stay with the man, and he gave Moses his daughter Zipporah as wife. She bore a son, whom he had named Gershom, for he said, "I have been a stranger in a foreign land."
Okay, thank you. So what's bothering Rashi here? I'll give you a hint. It's about this Midianite. So we have here that intermarriage is not just a new debated issue in Judaism, that Moses himself was intermarried. And we see that was very controversial even for Moses. His brother and sister were not thrilled with this. But not only is Moses intermarried, but who's he intermarried to? So imagine that I, as the rabbi, marry somebody who is not Jewish. Okay? Now, some of people, I will tell you right now, that some folks in our community would have absolutely no problem with that and not care at all if my wife wasn't Jewish. And other people in the community would take serious issue with that. Like, wait, our rabbi is married to somebody who's not Jewish? Here we have Moses, our greatest prophet. I mean, this is before he becomes our greatest prophet, but he is intermarried. Some people are going to take issue with that for him as a leader. Okay, so imagine that for me. But now, imagine that it's not just that I'm intermarried, but I marry the daughter of Dallin Oaks, the president of the Mormon Church. Would that take it to a whole nother level of seriousness for our community, do you think? Probably, yeah. It'd be like, he didn't just marry somebody not Jewish, he married the leader of another faith's daughter. Like, that would be a massive controversy. Probably for Dallin Oaks too. But anyways, even though I consider him a good friend, that would, I don't know that he would want me to be his son-in-law, and remain a rabbi at least. So we have here this. So this is what we have here, and this is troublesome to Rashi and to the rabbis, is that Moses is not only intermarried, but he is married to the daughter of a priest of the Midianites, who are like our not our friends. Yeah, Janine.
Joseph married the daughter of the priest of On,
There you go. So is there a precedence for this?
for our readers to marry the daughters of the high priest of the
Okay, so there you go. You're giving me a pass for. Well, I think Dallin Oaks' kids are all much older than me, but maybe his granddaughter. I do have an amazing wife, but it's Utah. I can always, yes. So I do have an amazing wife, and she's more than enough. I never really understood people want 5, 6 wives. But anyways, so we have here. So we do. There is a precedence for this. Also, what the rabbis say, the rabbis are always looking to defend the heroes of our Torah. They go, well, this was before Moses received the Torah and before we received certain laws prohibiting this. So at the time, he hadn't done anything wrong because this predates us receiving the law. But in particular, Rashi, so there's different types of commentary. There's what's called halachic commentary and agadic commentary. Halachic commentary explains a law and says, this is what this means. Like, for instance, it later says in the Torah that no descendant of a Moabite can ever enter the people of Israel. And people go, well, wait a second. Wasn't Ruth a Moabite? And then wasn't her descendant King David? And isn't the Messiah supposed to be a descendant of King David? So wait, are you saying the Messiah and King David aren't Jewish? And that's when the rabbis provide a halakhic a commentary and say, well, no, that's not what it's saying. Technically, actually, the law only applies to a descendant of a Moabite man, and Ruth was a Moabite woman. I kind of think her dad was probably Moabite, but anyways, regardless. So this is how they explain that with a halachic midrash, a halachic commentary. An agadic one is something that tells a story to explain. For instance, Moses has a stutter, we read, but we don't know how he got this stutter. And there's this whole story of how when Moses was a baby, somebody told Pharaoh that Moses was going to one day overthrow him and was his enemy. And Pharaoh looked at Moses, was like, he's a baby. What are you talking about? And the advisors of the Pharaoh said, well, let's do a test for him. We're going to put in front of him your jewels and your crown and all these things. And we'll also put in front of the baby some hot coals. And if he goes for the jewels, that means he's planning to overthrow you and take your crown. And if he goes for the coals, then that means he's not planning to do that. I don't know. They thought this experiment made sense. Pharaoh's like, all right, sounds good. And if he goes for the jewels, we'll of course have to kill the baby. And so they put Moses down. He starts crawling over to the jewels, and he reaches to touch a jewel. An angel of God takes his hand, puts it on the coals. Baby Moses grabs the coal, is like, oh my gosh, this is hot. He puts his hand in his mouth, burns his tongue, and this is what causes his stutter. None of that story is in the Torah at all, but it was created by the rabbis to explain how Moses got his stutter. So what we have here with chapter 2, verse 16, is this challenge of he married not just a Midianite, but the daughter of a priest of a Midianite, a guy named Jethro, who later becomes his most trusted advisor, and the Midianites are idol worshippers. Why is Moses his most trusted advisor, his beloved father-in-law? He adored his father-in-law. Why would Moses, why him? And wouldn't he lead Moses astray? And Rashi provides a Godic midrash here, where he says about this, it gives an explanation, that Jethro was the most prominent among the Midianites, but Jethro had chosen to abandon idolatry, so the Midianites, banished him. So what Rashi explains is, he was a Midianite priest. And then he saw the way of monotheism, abandoned idolatry, and said, this is wrong. And as a result, he was defrocked, I guess, if you will, and excommunicated from the Midianites. And this explains how Moses found himself in this situation, and that Jethro was not an idolatrous guy that was opposed to our values, but actually was a person who had come around to understanding our values and living those values. That's how Rashi explains it. Does not say that in the Torah, but this is how the rabbis justify it. Yeah, Rio.
Interesting interfaith cultural tidbit.
Yes.
Mormonism also has a Godic midrash, though they would not.
Might call it a different.
Jethro is a very concerning figure.
For Mormons,
Mormonism is obsessed with this concept of ordination and authorization.
Okay.
And Jethro ordained Moses. I can't remember if it's in LDS exclusive.
Yeah, I don't.
Scripture. I think it is.
Yeah, that might be an LDS text.
But
Yeah.
there is this extra textual drive that many people feel the need to speculate on. Okay, so how did the true priesthood get into Midian? And I think it leads to some really lovely, interesting places about people in other places are listening to God just as much as you, which is a lovely lesson that I wish Mormons were more consistently good at. And
There you go.
it's an interesting cultural point that Jethro is a significant point of interest.
I love that. I didn't know that. I will have to, next time I do a text study with one of my apostle friends, ask them about that. So that would be really interesting to hear their perspective. I love that. Josh.
Speaking of names, I might be reading this wrong, but is it called Jethro by a different name?
Yeah, I forget what it is, but thank you, Roel. Yes, he has another name here, so this is another thing we learned. Yeah. So some of these figures have different names. Or with Moses, for instance, we read about his wife here being a Midianite, but when Moses' siblings are bashing her, they refer to her as a Cushite. which would be somebody from Ethiopia and presumably with black skin. And so there's debate of like, wait, why did they call her a Cushite? And wait, did Moses have a second wife? And all that. So, anyways, that's something. Yeah. So sometimes we see different names used, or Sarah is in some places called Yehezka. We see Esther or Hadassah, and so sometimes also different names can mean different things. Like for instance, when I called yesterday my credit card company about something, they said, "What's your name?" I said, "Samuel." When I saw my friend, they said, "Sam." When I saw my congregant, they said, "Rabbi Spector." When I saw my daughter, she said, "Abba." When I saw my wife, she said, "Sweetheart." She sometimes might call me another name if she's not feeling like I'm her sweetheart in that moment. And so all these refer to the same person, but using a different, and when I went to the bank, they called me Mr. Spector. All these refer to the same person, but reflect different relationships. So sometimes we see that also in the Torah is people going by different names, but it's the same person, but that might reflect how a different relationship. Or I know some people, Adina, you talked about how you changed your name when you converted. I know people who've done that, but there are people who know those people by their previous names and still go by the previous name with those people and go by their new Jewish name when they're at the synagogue or something like that. And what they're called reflects their relationship with others or the place they're in. David, did you have something or somebody had something? Okay. So what does this say about Jethro's character? So we talked about name. What does this commentary from Rashi tell us about his character?
Maybe he's a conscientious objector to idolatry.
Yeah. So what they're saying about, what Rashi is saying about Jethro, and this is perhaps why he becomes such a great mentor for Moses, is that Jethro is a man of principles and courage. I mean, imagine right now if I were to say I didn't believe in Judaism anymore or whatever. There would be major consequences for that. I couldn't be a rabbi anymore. I've invested so much into this job and into this life, and there would be major consequences. That would be something that would take a lot of courage for somebody to do. And I've met people like that before. Like I've met people who are like Catholic priests and gone through like seminary and given up relationships to do that and all this stuff. And then like 10, 15 years into it, they go, I don't believe in Catholicism anymore. And the easy thing to do would be like, well, you're going to suffer in silence then, because you have built up this, you have invested this much into this, you have garnered this respect, this is how people see you, and this is how you have seen yourself, so you're going to suffer in silence. And he says, and this priest will say, no, I'm not going to suffer in silence, I'm going to go suffer out loud and really struggle by giving up a massive piece of my identity that I've invested everything into, but in terms of being authentic. And sometimes, and it does stand out to us in politics on either side, whether you agree with them or not. It stands out when John Fetterman, a Democratic senator, says, why are all the Democrats criticizing Trump for this Maduro thing? Can't we say this was a good thing and way to go, President Trump? And break with all the Democratic senators about that? And when Mitt Romney breaks with all Republican senators to talk about how much he hates Donald Trump or whatever, again, you might disagree with either of those points I just made, but we can say this is somebody who's putting their principles over their party, and that's admirable, whether you agree with them or not. because they do that with a lot of political risk and alienation. So it's impressive when we see somebody who puts their principles over their party or puts their country over their party. All right. Yeah, Rio.
It's significant that Rashi has Reuel leave from the top rather than leaving from the bottom of the Midianite priesthood. Because he was a great Midianite priest and became enlightened through, presumably, performance in that community, rather than, he was like, he felt himself called elsehow. It was not particularly important in priest, but like that got him in kind of the general area, and then he left. It makes a claim about the relative position, potentially of the gods of the Midianites and Adonai, or the traditions. But that was a particular choice that Rashi made in how the priestness changed.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, good point. Here, we got one more thing I want to take a look at. Let's go back a couple pages, 323. And can I get somebody to read from chapter 2, verse 10? Exodus chapter 2, verse 10. Or I could do it. All right, I'll do it. When the child grew up, she brought, this is referring to Pharaoh's daughter. When the child Moses grew up, she, Pharaoh's daughter, she, the nurse, Miriam, excuse me, okay, let me back up, sorry. So, page 323, verse 10. So we know that Pharaoh's daughter finds baby Moses flowing up the Nile River, and she gives the baby over to Miriam, Moses' sister, to raise the baby. So when the child Moses grew up, she, Miriam, brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, who made him her son. She named him Moses, explaining, "I drew him out of the water." Sometime after that, when Moses had grown up, he went out to his kinsfolk and witnessed their labors. What's bothering Rashi?
Probably the name.
The name, maybe. He has an Egyptian name. That's a great question. We don't know. Presumably he does once he strikes the taskmaster right there. So we don't know exactly. Doesn't get into that so much. I'm sure there's a lot of midrash on that. But what's bothering Rashi here is it says when the child grew up. And then in verse 10, and then in verse 11 it says sometime after that when Moses had grown up. And Rashi says, well, wait, I thought you just said when he grew up. And now you're saying after that when he had grown up? Didn't he already grow up? Wait, why is it saying he grew up and after that once he had grown up? What do you think what do you think that's saying? Why do you think it says that? So what Rashi teaches us about this is that the first reference is to when Moses had grown up in height, but the second is when he had truly become a man. So I probably became the height that I am now when I was 17. But am I more grown up now than I was when I was 17? I can certainly say, no, thinking about the things I did when I was 17, in my worldview when I was 17, yes, I'm more grown up now. You know, I own a house, I'm married, I have a career, I have kids, I'm a dad. None of that would have gone well when I was 17. If I were trying to do those things at 17, that would not have gone well. So one is a reference to when Moses had grown up physically, but the other is a reference to how he matured and when he was really able to make it on his own. Yeah, Josh.
When I read it, the first instance almost seems like when he was weaned, when he was no longer nursed.
Yeah, it sounds like that maybe.
But Rashi doesn't see it that way.
No, Rashi sees it as maybe like once he'd completed puberty and his childhood he was no longer a child.
Yeah, it's interesting. In the Hebrew, is it the same verb for both?
Yeah, same word, Vayigadel.
And I think the word for wean is something different.
Yeah, I don't remember what it is.
Yeah, the word exists. It wasn't used.
So yeah, that's a good question. So think about it. I want you to think about, since we're in a room of what appear to be adults, when was the moment that you kind of first felt like an adult? Was there a specific moment that you felt like an adult, or where you realized that you had autonomy, like separate from your family? Like, I don't really need to listen to my mom and dad or whatever. I'm going to make my own choice here. Or mom and dad aren't going to help me out of this situation. I need to take responsibility for this situation I'm in. Was there a moment like that in your life? My dad has told me about that moment for him. He was like almost 40 when it happened for him. But he told me he remembers it clearly. He said that it was his first Father's Day of being a dad. He said, my very first Father's Day of being a dad is when I was about 5 months old. He said that was the first time that I felt that I woke up and I went, oh my gosh, I'm an adult. So yeah. Go ahead, David.
I believe I felt I'm an adult when I was 35.
When you were what? 35?
35. And that moment when my father died,
Mm.
I lost my safety net.
Mm.
I don't have any reference anymore. And this is it. This is life, and I have to deal with it.
I heard, so David said when his father died when he was 35, he lost that safety net and he had to take on that responsibility. And I've heard, thankfully my father is still alive, but I've heard people say that for some men, they can feel like that there's 2 days that they're born, the day that they are born and the day that their father dies. I've heard I heard somebody say that once, that it felt like, I remember somebody telling me that once. That sounds like for you, that was certainly the case, was like when your father died, saying, wow, this is a moment where I now am fully responsible for myself. Yeah, Jeff.
Doesn't David charge Solomon on his deathbed to be a man?
So that was in last week's Haftarah, so I'd have to look, but yeah, that could be, is like David passing that to Solomon and saying, now's your time to grow up, and you have sons yourself, Jeff, so that's something you can think about. I know how caring and protective you are over your sons, but one day when you can't be there anymore to be there for them, that you want them to be able to care for themselves. And so great point there, of being able to say, and so perhaps this is the case for Moses too, is that, and that's actually what Rashi says, is that this is when he became the head of his own household and and was no longer dependent on Pharaoh or living in the palace, specifically. So, I mean, it's a big moment once we send our children off to college. I remember my very first day at college. My dad cried so much when he dropped me off. It was really embarrassing. He sobbed crying in the parking lot of my school and dropping me off to college, because he was like, yeah, my kid's going to make his own decisions. And I remember that first day, there was a massive party at the school to welcome back the school year, and they had a concert and stuff. And I remember seeing 20 freshmen sitting on this curb in handcuffs because undercover cops at this concert had caught them underage drinking. And all I could think of was those poor kids have to call their parents and say, I have been out on my own for exactly 1 day and I'm in jail. Can you come get me? And how mortifying that must have been, that here they were trying to show their parents, I can go be independent. And less than 24 hours later, they were in jail, calling their parents, asking them to bail them out. So I was like, thank God I was not in handcuffs and stuff like that, because I would have been, I probably would still be sitting in that jail cell over calling my dad to be like, hi, I'm in jail. So come get me. It's been almost 24 hours since you've left me. But yeah, so that there's that moment. Josh, did you have something or?
I have something that goes back to the beginning, so it's not really germane to what we're talking about, but so I'll bring it up later when there's a more appropriate time.
Okay, that was good. Well, Julia, did you have your hand up?
Yeah.
Oh, please go ahead.
Actually, it's interesting that in the experiences of all of these important people, big changes is to a kind of reborn or to grow inside and then in their performance. When someone who was very important in their life pass away,
Mm-hmm.
like for example David, and
Yeah.
gave the step to Solomon. Solomon must grow to perform, and in our lives, when someone of our around close to us pass away, we need to a kind of reborn or for performance without that person.
Right.
You know, because we take their knowledge
Yeah.
to learn and to improve our way to be.
Yeah.
You know, so we were out of this topic. I think.
No. I appreciate what you're saying.
Yeah.
Um,
And actually, I'm thinking about Moses and his father-in-law Jethro.
mm-hmm.
You know, he learned for a person who was actually not involved with Judaism.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, here Jethro says was a kind of leader, a very important person.
Yeah.
So Moses learned even from that person who was not involved with Judaism. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I appreciate what you're saying, because we do have to learn, and that can be contribute to growing up too. I often talk about when I do an unveiling at a cemetery, how we wait a year. Part of the reason is because we couldn't imagine Thanksgivings without that person, or birthdays, or anniversaries, or Mother's Day without your mom, or whatever it is. It's hard to imagine those, and yet now we've gone through a whole year, or talk about again feeling like you become an adult. For a lot of people, it's, well, my father always led Passover Seder, and now he's gone, so I have to be the one to lead Passover Seder. And it's like, that is, for some people, their moment of like taking on that new role in their family. So yeah, we do learn with that.
Yeah, my son passed away when he
Mhm.
was 22 years.
Yeah.
And he was working for Nike. He was skateboard
For Nike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was always very happy
Mm.
and everybody. In the first moment was a shock, but then he passed away 11 years ago, and I learned from him how he faced in the life, how much happy he was, how much grateful he was in life, and I reborn, I learned how to live in his way too. So enrich my life, and I think that happens with many hard
Mm.
events. With
Yeah.
And the Dorbador is an interesting expression,
Yeah.
because even we give to our next generations, but as well the other generations give to us.
So yeah.
And finally,
Yeah.
sorry,
No
I
worries.
read here that they are talking about this interesting person people who were hers,
Mhm.
hers who made the Zionism.
Mhm.
You know,
Herzl? Yeah.
Yeah, he made the Zionism.
Yeah.
He thought that he was alone, but he changed it.
Yeah.
He created the perspective to found the territory
Sure.
for Israelis, and was just one person. And he had a character like Moses.
Mm.
According to the Kabbalah, you know, that soul goes to keep the Israel.
No, thank you. So yeah, we do see again with Crown of a Good Name how one person can inspire so many other folks. Something that you touched on reminded me of another name change. You talked about having lost